Red leather, yellow leather.
What are you going to say? That's funny.
I'm going to use that,
Great. All right. Well, hello, everybody. Welcome to another edition of the Disorganized Religion Podcast, the DRP, or the
Derp.
As always, I'm joined by my colleagues.
DaShawn Jones. What's funny about me? Uh-oh.
All kinds of stuff.
I don't know. Man, I'm blanking here.
Well, why don't you go ahead and give us your latest effort at converting a hymn to a love song to pick up a girl?
Oh, okay.
Can you do you have a great voice. Can you do some bass, deep Barry White kind of?
What?
Can you sing?
Can you sing?
Can
Can you
sing way down here?
Yeah, you can. Nice.
Yeah. I don't know.
That opens up a whole other level of musical content if you can sing low like that. I really covet that bass voice. That's silky smooth. Good stuff.
I don't even know.
You know how funny things. All right.
You've already been funny anyway, so well done.
No, I'm not.
I'm Eric Johnson. I'm a Leo, and I just wanted to correct the record. I am not a seminary dropout,
That is true.
as was previously stated on one of these podcasts.
That is true. On a rant when we were talking about whether I was allowed to switch from robe to alb. I said that Eric couldn't wear one because he was a seminary dropout, which is not true. He is a seminary graduate,
Correct.
as graduated
Asbury
as graduated can be
Seminary, yep.
from Asbury Seminary. He is an ordination process dropout.
That is correct. I started the ordination process,
Right.
and then quit.
So therefore, I stand my ground, however, that he is not able to wear either the alb or the... Actually, he probably could if he wanted to.
I can wear an owl.
There are no worship police that'll come
Official
bust you for
rules.
wearing inappropriate garb up there. So, all right. Well, it is
Before you get started, we were talking off campus, or off campus,
Off campus.
off camera. You mentioned that the Methodist Church gave you an Ancestry.com version of
Are we going to talk about that right now in the thing?
Yeah. I want to hear more about your DNA test
That was
that
for
linked
y'all.
you all the way back to Paul.
Your spiritual ancestry.com.
That's right. Is there
So you
church
send them
ancestry?
you send them
how
a
does-
hair sample, and they can tell you who ordained you.
I want to hear about.
Well, the embarrassing thing for y'all then is that you thought this was a genetic thing that we were talking about. No, I mean,
how are you linked to
so
Paul?
Who sat down and did this?
Yeah.
I don't know. So when you're
23andMe,
when you're when you're ordained
Uh-huh.
in the Florida Conference of the Methodist Church, they give you this record of your ordination succession all the way back to John Wesley. So for mine,
Okay, so what does that? Hold on, before you. What does that mean? Like, your ordination success. So
that means
So-
that John Wesley ordained Thomas Coke, who ordained Francis Asbury, who ordained William McKendry, who ordained James Andrew, who ordained George Pierce, who ordained William Wallace Duncan, freedom, who ordained
same
James
William.
Henry McCoy, not the same guy, who ordained Claire Purcell, who ordained Max Stokes, who had ordained Timothy Whitaker, who ordained Matt Horan.
wow.
So that's my family tree back to John Wesley, ordination-wise. No,
Not a family
You
tree,
cannot
but
find that through 23andMe or Ancestry.com or whatever.
I'm looking to
Jason, I
start
think we're
one,
missing
though.
the boat. You think we could create like a website?
I think
that
we
did,
could.
like churchancestry.com.
Yes, and, like,
or
reroute everybody's-
pastorapostolic.tree.com.
Yes.
Maybe.
I think
That'll be our first customer.
No, I have mine. I'm good. Thank you.
this might be our $1 million idea.
Yes. Or a 72-cent roll.
What would be in the kit?
Right. You'll get 72 cents for everyone.
I wonder what would be in the DNA kit that you would have to send to each pastor, like, or would there be like an online
Let's just take a
form
piece
that
of
you
their
have to
robe.
fidget-
Let's just take a piece of a robe.
Are you an alb versus a robe person?
Yeah, just for the record, I am not investing in this venture
I think we have
at
something
all.
here.
So then
It's okay.
someone else did this like doctoral thesis project to discern to trace the ordination tree of John Wesley and made it all the way back to St. Paul the Apostle.
Okay, so that's how you.
So
Saul of Tarsus.
so somebody sent that to me, and so that
Well, that is pretty cool.
gave a pretty whole.
But so
Yeah, and I mean, and so again, it's based on whether this doctoral thesis person
got it right.
actually got it
Missed
all
someone
right.
along the way.
But I mean, it looks like. It looks like about the right amount of time between each person, and so I have no reason to dispute them, but yeah, so it traces all the way back
How many people back does
from
it, does
me
it
to
switch
St.
from
Paul the Apostle.
from Roman Latin names to English names? There must be a
You can
point
spot
where
it,
it switches from
When you have Maximus
from Roman
Leicester,
Catholicism over to Church of England.
you have Maximus Leicester, Aetherius, St. Augustine,
Yeah, that's some good Roman
Laurentius,
stuff.
Justus,
Yeah,
Ducidit, and then Theodore,
Yeah, that's
and
it.
Ethelbert.
I think Theodore was the
Egbert,
first.
and the Hereford. All of a sudden, it gets kind of
Very-
Great British.
Yes.
Very Anglo all of a sudden.
Yeah, Anglo. Right. So you can tell that's where it kind of shifts to the, to the Brits.
To the
probably.
island. Yeah.
Yeah. But there's some cool names in there. Thomas Becket is in my ancestry. St. Augustine. Well, that was a cool one. Who else? Irenaeus.
So technically, all Methodists would go back to Wesley,
Right.
and then they just needed to track from Wesley back to
Yeah, if they find
whatever
this
apostle.
doctoral thesis guy,
yeah.
or email us. I'm at ericj@heritageumc.com. Glad to send you the list here.
I wonder if you're a Presbyterian. Do they trace you back to Calvin and then
Ooh.
Calvin back to?
We should
I
get
kinda
we should
doubt
get
it.
Our finest people on that.
I kind of doubt it, but
Do we have people?
We are the
still
people.
don't have people.
but in your business model, you can include that. Every denomination, you can find out everybody. So all those ordained people can trace their ordination back to.
Well, that's very interesting. Even though we made a lot of fun of
You
it.
did make a lot of fun of it. So, but again, I think you're just jealous. So, but
As
I'm
as
related
an
to Paul the
ordination
Apostle.
dropout.
Yep, that's right. Well, anyway, so what was I talking about before? First of all, I would like you to notice that Church Bells at Midnight is now available both in paperback and hardback on Amazon.com and through the Whipfenstock website. So feel free. It's also available at Barnes & Noble online and in any fine online retailer. Harder to find in person. If you're going through the shelves in your bookstore, you're probably not going to find it.
Probably not.
But it's out there to be had.
Have you got your first royalty check yet?
I've not gotten a royalty check yet. I believe they make you wait until the royalty check is greater than the cost of the stamp they use to send it to you. So, and I've probably not hit that yet. But I do want to say thanks to my mom, who has been a huge supporter of the book and has been making all of her family members buy the book. They all had this reunion up
They
in
sit
New
on the
Jersey.
beach and read it.
I saw the pictures. Yeah.
Basically, she said, if you guys don't all show up with a copy of Matt's book, you're gonna go back home and order it, and then come back to the beach when you have it. So yeah, they had a picture of all of them reading the book together. So I appreciate my family. I made like $4 or $5 right there on that beach. So that was pretty awesome.
Well, I ordered mine, and my wife promptly stole it. So she's
Well, she knows
reading.
good material when she sees it.
Yeah.
So she just buy another one, and then you'll be able to read both of them at the same time.
I'll give my college roommate a copy.
Please do. Spread the word.
Don't give him a copy. He has to buy his own.
Oh, that's true. I should
Don't-
recommend.
Don't give your copy to anyone.
Right, and I'll give you a percentage of I'll have a little contract there if you can move my
I
product.
can move your product all over DC.
Hey, psst. Do you have Church Bells at Midnight?
Does Bob Buckhorn know that he's a co-author now too?
I will say that he's a
Because
super good guy.
if you search for Bob Buckhorn on Amazon, your book comes up now.
Right, he is listed on Amazon as an author of the book, and I mean, there's worse people to be attached to.
Yeah.
Maybe
he's good
market it
people.
under his name. Maybe you have a
His
bestseller
name
right there.
figures prominently for that paragraph that he wrote.
One paragraph.
But hey, he was the mayor through the thing, so you got to give him some credit for that.
Props,
if
yeah.
you want to listen to him as a writer of the book, then that's cool. I'll take it. His name probably moves more merchandise than mine does anyway. So.
And I also noticed you were able to get the bad Amazon review.
Yes.
Taken off.
The first review I got on Amazon, both listeners, you should hear this, because my first review was from someone who lived in Maine and had their address set to their last residence, and they couldn't figure out how to order the book and have it sent to their main address. So they gave me a 1-star review and said, "This book looks great, but I can't figure out how to order it to my house in Maine, so..." And I know this is not a place for complaints, but I don't know where else to put this, so I'm giving this guy a 1-star review on his book.
Your first review was a 1.
I'm like, well, if you ordered a toaster to your house in Maine, give that a bad review. Rather than why do I have to be the one who gets the bad review? As if Amazon goes around reading all the bad reviews to see if they can help you with your displeasure. So that was unfortunate, and that sat there killing my algorithm for like a week until I finally got a hold of somebody and they got rid of it. But yeah, so my book had like 1 star, then it had 3.5 stars when my mom did a
She
review.
did a 5.
My mom got on
So
there
now
and
you're
averaged
average,
it out, right? so finally it's off there. Now it's a 5-star book. Now that one's gone, but and that was too bad. When it first came out, it was a 1-star book.
Well, good stuff. Go ahead and get your copy.
Yes, Church Bells at Midnight by Matt Horan.
Yep. What does it say on the top there? A church,
Its neighborhood.
its neighborhood, and a serial killer. Ooh. You need like a dramatic dun dun.
Dun, dun,
Dun,
dun.
dun, dun.
Yeah, I'll find one.
Yeah, no, it's a true story. I mean, this serial killer really was on the loose in this neighborhood, and so a lot of people stepped up and did impressive things to serve the Lord and serve the neighborhood at this time. So it's a privilege to tell the story and see if others can learn from what our church learned back then. So,
All right, so this is part 2.
Yeah, let's press
last
on.
week we talked about going through adversity. We talked about the Olympics and how athletes go through adversity. We talked a little bit about how we go through adversity, and it just seems like hits just keep coming. Like just when we thought we didn't have to deal with COVID anymore, it's like back with a vengeance.
Yeah.
And I don't know about you, but this time around, it seems to be hitting people closer to me. Like the first time around, no one in my immediate family, tested positive. But this time, there's been some family members. I don't know. This one's hitting closer for me. My own daughter tested positive and was sick for a week and a half. So I just want we were talking about, does God allow this sort of adversity to happen to us, or does he cause this sort of adversity to us? And we started talking about Wesley's theology of sanctification and pruning and that sort of stuff. So I think we should pick up the conversation there again.
yeah, well, then I asked, starting off with you as the coach, do you intentionally make the sport harder for your players or your swimmers in your case, in order to refine them and make them better at their sport? And the answer is, of course, yes. So and DaShawn referenced Job, right? So does God, intentionally plan misfortune for us so that we can be refined?
And you're getting ready to preach on Jonah in a couple of weeks.
Yep. This weekend.
Yeah. So did God?
Well, hold on. When people hear this, well, I've already done it once.
Yeah.
Probably. Yeah. So you've already preached on
So
Jonah. Correction.
We've already reached on. And I mean, the sermon was amazing, was it not?
It was one of your best, I think.
I gotta say, I was feeling it. I really was. I was feeling it.
You were on fire. Yep, clearly.
Yeah. So, So to be clear,
This is the
we were recording this before the sermon.
This is the disorganized part of the disorganized religion.
Very disorganized.
Oh.
The VDRP.
This is the D in the.
You're gonna have to bring your A game to this one now.
I know, right?
Step up.
Yep. So Jonah, has the chance to go do this hard thing, chooses not to, and
God clearly put some challenges in front of him
yeah,
to persuade him to go the other way.
yeah, and not to refine him, but
Right.
to change
As a persuasive.
his course, right? So there's plenty of examples in the scriptures where, the way it's written, God is making this thing happen to cause another outcome.
Well, you could sort of argue that Jonah gets refined in the process.
Oh, I don't think so at all.
I know.
No?
Even after the end of chapter
Well, that's
4.
true. I guess at the end he's still sitting,
He's sitting
moping,
there.
moping under the tree, right?
I can't believe you saved these people.
Yeah, I guess you're right.
That was in the final leaf falls. Is that what happens?
And then the tree, right? The
tree's withering.
Why don't you just let me die rather than have to sit there with no tree? He may be worse at the end than he is in the. I don't know.
Yeah, true. Could be. Yep.
So, the Ninevites change and become
Right.
become better,
Right.
but yeah, he's does not come through it well at all. And there's only one other mention of Jonah in the Bible. It's in 2 Kings where they list him as a prophet who spoke to this one issue one time and then blows right by. So we don't know a whole lot about Jonah and his life other than that one mention and then this book. So it's hard to know where to put it in history, where to who the audience for it was. It's not by Jonah because it's about him, right? So you don't even know who wrote it.
He wouldn't have wrote it that way if, it was, if
Right.
he were the author. He would have sounded a lot better.
It was definitely, you'd think that he would have spun it a little bit better in his favor.
I
Right?
mean, unless you're John and you're like the disciple whom Jesus loved.
Right,
You're just
you
selling
promote
yourself.
yourself, right.
You're selling yourself.
That's one of the things
that
I like about Scripture is that the stories don't always make the person who's the focus of it
Yeah.
look all that great. In fact, most of the time,
And it's more
whoever
believable
the
that
focus
way.
of the story is the
It's more believable that way.
And that helps us to see ourselves in it.
yeah. Well, clearly, yeah.
Yeah.
I can relate to Jonah. That's for sure.
But so you have this the one issue of whether God causes or allows stuff, and is there even a difference, right?
Yeah, it doesn't really feel that much different when it's happening to
Theoretically,
you, right?
if you have the ability to stop something evil from happening and you don't, are you not complicit in it?
Right.
Another philosophical question. James would say, if you see the good you could do and you don't do it, you sin. So if I can prevent something bad from happening, even though I know, doesn't kill you, only makes you stronger, right? So maybe I'm going to allow you to go through this. But so a lot of different back and forth, and people will often go back to, well, if this is what happened, then that God must have caused that, and that's just
Well, and I'm
God's
just going to
God's in
throw it
control.
out there. Like, how do you get around God caused my brother, my parents, to die from COVID? Like, how do you, as a pastor, when somebody brings that to you, how do you get around? Like, why did God let my parents die from COVID? Why did God let my spouse, die from cancer? How do you that? That's when it gets hard.
And
Right?
I think that's the thing that I don't want to disparage a whole host of people that think this, but sometimes I feel like the easy way out is just to say, well, God's in control, and there must be a plan, and we'll know it when we see him face to face. That isn't comforting to me.
Yeah.
To think this is God's plan. Cancer, coronavirus, car accident, because what you do with swimmers, right, is intentionally making it harder. Like, that is for their own refinement.
Right.
That is not an accident, right?
Right.
That is not
But that's different than
right.
putting some sort of tragedy in their life.
Right.
I don't cause tragedies in their life.
Right, which
Yeah.
makes you a better coach, I think. So So yeah,
So that's different, right? I
it
think,
is.
Yeah.
I think so. And it's a tough wrestle, right? Because the Bible says tells stories of God causing things. Jesus even talks about how things happened so that the glory of God, like the person's blind, so that the glory of God can be seen.
Right.
Oh, I hate that, but that's in the
Yeah.
Bible, So
the-
what do I do with that story? And I mean, obviously we've talked before. I tend to be a literary critical studier of the Bible, so I'm going to ask more about the author and
Context and
what they're
who they're writing to.
yeah, why they wrote this and who they wrote it to and why, and what they're trying to do to shape us. But you still can't help but feel like a twinge of pain at the thought
Get a
of
little
God.
stuck in the details of the story.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And then that goes on to, as we look at our discipleship and taking on the responsibilities of being in prayer, being in Bible study, being in a small group, going to worship, being generous, being a servant, doing
Being
evangelism,
sanctified.
all these things that sanctify us.
Yeah.
I mean, it's hard to not preach those things and feel like you're laying a burden on people that is confining and taking up their time and space and energy and resources. It can feel constraining to people, but then we talk about how being sanctified and growing in our faith actually sets us free.
Yeah.
So, how would you guys teach a person by taking on these things? This actually sets you free.
Well, I mean, for me, it's that those things help strengthen you to take on the next thing. So, like I said, God doesn't. He never says there won't be suffering. He never says there won't be trials. In fact, he says there will be. He tells his disciples there will be trials, but I think that each of those things makes you stronger, makes you better prepared to handle the next one that comes. And I also think it makes you better prepared to help someone else along the way who may be struggling with something similar to what you've struggled with. I think, that I don't think God causes those tragedies to happen to you, but those tragedies will eventually happen to you, and He uses that refining process to make you stronger, so that you can get through the next one, and that you can also help your fellow disciple along the way. So that's sort of how I reconcile it in my head.
Yeah, I like that.
It's kind of like the puppet master versus the watchmaker philosophy, right? Like you have the puppet master who controls everything,
Yeah.
and then the watchmaker who just made it and set it up to go.
Yeah.
Occasionally has to step in and repair stuff, but ultimately the point is to let it go and happen the way that it was designed.
Yeah.
And so,
And I'm not a huge fan of either of those. Those feel like too extreme. Like I think there's somewhere in the middle. That God's not a puppet master, but He's also not an absent creator either. Like He's still active and
well, the watchmaker still gets in and does repairs.
yeah.
Like, and it has to wind the watch every once in a while, set it to the right time, So, and I mean, like I've said 1,000 times, I will, when I get to the to the end and I see the Lord, I'm gonna want to ask, how did you decide when to get involved and when to let it, unfold the way that it was going to unfold? Because there are miracles. I mean, there are things that have happened to people that there's no other explanation other than hand of God swept in and changed this.
God clearly intervening.
Yeah, and
some,
so
that
that
then
happens.
opens up the can of, well, why does He intervene here,
Right.
not up there?
Yeah.
And, yeah.
So, but I mean, I would say that the things that really seize control of us, right, or that want to seize control of us. Last time we talked about the relationship between Satan and God, and how God seems to put some guardrails around what Satan is allowed to do. Again, those passages don't really intend to teach us about the relationship between God and Satan, but it kind of shows up there, so you get the impression that God is willing to allow those things to happen that will refine us, but then continues to invite us to walk through it in a way that makes us, like you said, more able to break free from the stuff that wants to confine us. So if if I feel confined by anxiety or addiction or fear or some kind of bad habit or whatever the thing is that's holding me back, by adding those tools, right, or adding those weapons, you would probably be stuck in the jail cell of those things unless you had those things that help you get out of there. So
Yeah, there's definitely some freedom that comes after that refining. So, like when you survive through a tragedy or a dramatic illness, you always hear those, and happen to us personally. There's this, well, okay, we made it through that. We made it through cancer. Let's live. Let's do the things we always wanted to do. So coming out on the other side, there's a freedom of like
perspective.
well, yeah, okay, this could end at any time. What are we waiting for? Let's get to it, and you start doing some of the stuff on your bucket list. But yeah, I can see that freedom on the other side. But man, it's hard to see when you're in the weeds.
Yeah. So what do you say to somebody who's in the weeds, like you just said? So as a pastor, what are your words? Because I know you said we don't like to, you don't like to throw the sovereignty of God out there. Just God's in control. So what do you say in those moments?
Thanks for asking. I would say very little, actually. If a person comes to me in the midst of some kind of suffering, what they really need is not for me to explain to them why this is happening to them.
Yeah,
It's to explain to them that they're not alone, and I want to hear the story, and I'm going to sit here with you until you finish telling it to me, and I'm going to ask questions to work to understand and be with you in it. And then, usually I would ask a person after they've shared their story, so what are you going to do? And the thing that, is whenever a person is in a situation where there's some kind of problem to solve or some kind of whatever challenges in front of them, if I give them what to do, they may or may not own the responsibility for that outcome. If it comes from them, then they're gonna probably feel more passion and excitement to walk through it and solve it. But if it's something that's happened to them and they're just sort of sharing with me what's going on, they don't need words from me in that moment. They just need to know they're not alone. And when I do a funeral, especially in a tragic situation, again, I know people have tried to give cosmic purpose to this tragedy that happened, but I don't feel like it's my place to tell you why this happened. It's my place to tell you this happened, and it will only have purpose if we give it purpose after the fact. So will we gain perspective? Will we learn something? Will we do something that we wouldn't have done before? Will we help this person who died live on in us by taking the good things about them and including them in our lives as we go forward? So, but I'll tell you though, it's hard. We talked yesterday about being in a hospital room, right? And one of the things I had to learn in seminary when I was an intern was you walk in a hospital room where people are being healed and doctors and nurses are solving stuff and giving them medicine and doing surgeries and stuff, and I just stood there I feel kind of in the way. I'm gonna pray with you when, which feels so low on the totem pole, and all these things are happening in this person's hospital room. But part of the journey was for me to realize that what I had to offer them was also important, and really it's a ministry of presence.
Gotcha.
I wanted to fix it, solve it, make their cancer go away. I couldn't, but I could remind them that God loves them and is with them, which is a huge thing to believe that God has called you to represent his presence with them by you being there yourself. Lord, are you sure that I'm the person who best represent you here? But good question. And it's a tough thing to learn, to try to not solve their problem by saying something profound, but they don't need you to say anything profound. They just need you to sit there and listen to them. And so I want to say thank you to all of you for listening to us today. So, Although I guess you didn't really have a chance to talk back to us if you're listening to our podcast on in your car. So maybe you just shouted at us in your car that you disagree. We feel free to shout at us in your car whenever you feel like it. That would be more than happy for us to learn that someone saw you in your car next to you at the stoplight yelling at your radio.
Yes, we
Glad to
appreciate
know.
your feedback.
Matt H. and
There you go. Well, thanks again, friends, for hanging out with us today. We appreciate it. I hope that you enjoyed my sermon that I preached last Sunday.
It was really great.
Which is really, to us, hasn't happened yet, but I'm sure by the time you hear this, I will have thought of some great things to say, and I'm sure it would have been wonderful. Take care. God bless. See you guys later.
See ya.